Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thami Ntuli says he's optimistic that the 173 recruits appointed by the province will strengthen the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. The latest quarterly crime statistics showed that Inanda and Umlazi police stations had the highest number of reported GBV cases in the province. Ntuli has handed over appointment letters to these volunteers at the Durban Westville Correctional Facility. We talked to Pinky Mgobozi, founding director of MDI, activist on GBVF for more. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, we watched and saw the level of optimism expressed by Premier Ntuli when it comes to fighting the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide in KZN. What is your view?
Thank you for inviting me. We welcome the Premier's focus on community safety. The appointment of the 173 volunteers, we are cautiously welcoming it, because the problems that are facing the province require more than just dropping more human being, really, because when you look at the objectives that the government is setting for having these volunteers appointed, they are so big and so broad, and they seem to be seen. I mean, one of the things that they're saying they viewed as a lifeline.
Yeah.
And when you really think about the problems in the police stations, it requires more than just appointing young people to come in and be put out there in the cold face, really. It just raises more concerns and more questions about, are we addressing the right problems?
So with that and the caution that you're really just monitoring here when it comes to the impact of these recruits, what stands out as the biggest concern here as you talk about being, cautiously optimistic when these recruits were announced?
Yeah, I think the main issues is the problem in the police stations are systematic. They are processed. How resourced are these young people to respond? And I think the Premier has positioned them as liaisons between community and the police, and the police. One of the problems we see in the province is police officials refusing to open a case of gender-based violence. What authority then do these young people have to force a police station to open a case? We recently received as a country the HSRC report, and the problems that we have as a country, which are very intense in KZN, are cultural. They relate to education, and we need more from the Premier. And it is going to be difficult to measure the impact of these young people. It is going to be difficult to see if there is really return on the investment, if they are going to be based in the community, just to help me go to a police station to report a case with a police station that is not resourced to deal with the case or to process the case. Currently, the CGE is busy reviewing access to the entire criminal justice in KZN because of systematic problems that we have in KwaZulu-Natal. So we welcome the 173 people, but it's definitely not going to yield the objectives that government has really communicated. If you look at some of the objectives of having these 173 people, they are going to be community-based, they're going to be working with education, they're also going to be working with police. So it's so broad that with so many dependencies on other things being done right, that it's going to be difficult to say, are they succeeding? Are they having an impact? But we're absolutely happy that there is more feet on the ground.
How then do you think we break the stigma around reporting GBV cases?
I think it's big. One, we have to see a SAPS and a police station that takes cases seriously. We have to see a criminal justice that really does find perpetrators guilty and really have effective sentences. So I am not going to be encouraged to report a case if I know that next week the perpetrator is going to be walking the street. And these young people, those are things that they can't impact and change. We have to intensify education. One of the things that are highlighted by the HSRC when they are looking at violence that is within families, it is all the cultural norms, it is the belief systems. So focus on education and conversations and really shifting our attitudes and fostering really healthy relationships is what we need. Not more layers of people going through. Why should I go through a liaison to get to a police station?
Yeah.
And if the police station is not resourced to take my case, what is the liaison that has been put there going to do differently?
Yeah, more so with the absence of forensic laboratories in KZN having played a significant barrier to justice. I mean, you speak about perpetrators walking the streets. And of course, we know that victims have to wait for several years for evidence to be processed. That alone is discouraging enough.
It is discouraging, as it is truly discouraging. And in KZN, it starts with even my right to open the case. These young people are not going to force police to open the case. Once the case is opened, the processes of managing the evidence that is then going to go to the court, we are seeing a concerning increase where there is more pressure put on victims to negotiate settlements outside the court process. Is these liaisons going to be really another agent to try and reduce the number of cases that are seen and handled and investigated by the police? We do not know. So there's so many systematic and resource questions we need to be asking the Premier to focus on giving clarity on, rather than just adding more volunteers and just giving appointment letters, for the people to be getting a stipend at the end of the month. And yet they are themselves being set up to fail because they are themselves going to be frustrated. Are these people going to be emergency response? Do I call them? Then they call the police. Will the police come? The role that is expected of these young people, in my opinion, is still very grey. The objectives that the Premier communicated are very broad and have got many other dependencies for us to say these young people will really have impact.
Yeah. Very well. Thank you so much for weighing in on the conversation. Let's leave it there. Wrapping up with Pinky Mgobozi, who's founding director of MDI, activists on GBVF. And of course, speaking to some of the big questions around this recruit.